Thank you very much for joining us today. This is a special session, actually. If you have perhaps followed some of the news in each region, in each constituency, if you are members, but also if you follow our global communications, you know that during February, we held a series of collabs, which are small or regional sessions, more like intimate sessions to discuss what's going on in each of our constituencies. Well, actually, we sort of grouped in some cases, but we try to keep it more localized, following also our intentions of understanding what's happening locally and connecting global agendas there. So in this series of collabs throughout February, we discussed the work that farmers markets are doing in terms of advocacy, in terms of raising the voices, the needs that farmers have, markets locally have, and to place them into public agendas of policymakers and others that are also impacting upon local policies. So in these sessions, we met for about an hour or a bit more, the time that required to understand a bit better what was happening locally. We had many learnings also. We understood that there are clear differences also because, well, all humans, and we know that each of our markets is reflecting how different we are, but we understand that underneath there are many things that connect us. And that's what we will try to show today, to discuss together at the end too. And without further ado, I will introduce the agenda. Here are fabulous, marvelous 5 speakers that will join us today. I will introduce them. I will introduce each of them in a moment, but I will just show how the meeting will go today. And Richard will explain a bit more about what I was just mentioning about this series of collabs. We will have an introduction to what is bringing us today to this studio by the president of the World Farmers Markets Coalition, Richard McCarthy. Then we will have the presentation of our 5 guest speakers who are members of the WorldFMC and are representing each of the regions. And at the end, we will allow for about 20 minutes, more or less, after we hear all of the constituencies and what was learned in each of these collabs. We expect in this final moment to hear from you, your reactions, your reflections about what's coming from each of these locations, but also how you see them connecting globally. That would be very interesting for us to learn too. And well, who is speaking and will be moderating these spaces? Ana Maria. And I'm glad to join you today again. So please, Richard, can you tell us what is this studio about?
Ana Maria, thank you. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see you all here. And thank you, Ana Maria, and for the Roman team and Viola to put together what was a very intense period in, I think, almost entirely in February, where we delivered on something we had proposed during our General Assembly back in the fall, which was to dive in deeper in these collabs, these collaborative laboratories where we moved more away from presentation towards conversation about the very issue that we know is very sticky for those of us who navigate in a policy environment that is not always, in fact, is almost every time inhospitable to us to exist. So we met, as Ana Maria described, in the different geographic territories to maybe lower the pressure to present what your issue is or what advocacy challenges you face. In part to see whether there were any particular regional trends, or as we have often found, the issues are very similar the world over. And I think that was one of the things we found. We know that the context in which we operate and in which our international organization was founded is a period which doesn't really yet have a name, maybe we can refer to it today as the poly crisis. There are crises in the way the world is set up. It's not functioning so well. We were envisaged as a response to that in many ways. Many of our markets began because farmers were frustrated, consumers were frustrated. There must be a better way. And in that better way, we navigate that space between the formality and the informality. Certainly within the market, it seems informal. Innovation is allowed to grow, and yet there are rules, there are procedures. And the challenge that we found, and I think this is true from all corners of the map, is that where existing regulations, whether it's at the local or the subnational, or even the national and international level, if I consider, areas like the European Union, the rules are not really did not anticipate our existence. Therefore, much of the policy advocacy we heard was demonstrated a great deal of creativity of how to maneuver around existing regulations. We also heard a great deal of inventiveness to develop new rules, new regulations, new categories, and I think we'll hear about some of these today, whether they are categories of what kind of markets ours are, the direct market, whether it is the cottage industry laws that allow for cottages for small family businesses to operate out of their homes, despite food handling regulations. But in every case, I think that what we could see and say is a common thread is that our policy proposals come not from starry-eyed think tank work, but they come from action and from actually doing. And by doing, we change the landscape, and which we know is not enough. We also have to mop up after ourselves and actually alter the landscape. And I'm excited that we have from all parts of the world our leaders who can share what they found in their collabs of how we are reorienting the landscape.
Thank you, Richard. And please help us with the community agreements before we start.
I will. As you know, we are an international or global community of practice. We are all often peers or advocates for our work in local food, but our engagements should also be kind and open. So we have these community agreements, which we utilize, I think, in all of our engagement to be present and engaged, to welcome and honor multiple viewpoints, to hold judgments and disagreements softly, especially important in a rather hard world. Trust intent, acknowledge impact, listen to learn, ask to understand. And I think in particularly, I'll stop here, which is think in sentences, not paragraphs. Sorry for the long paragraphs.
No, that's perfect, Richard. Thank you very much for that introduction. I think now, if you are new to the space or if you could not join us during the collabs, I hope that you're getting a sense of what was this work, these meetings throughout February and what we're going to discuss today. Well, just a reminder, who are joining us today are Jean-Charles Jairala from Lebanon, Jean-Nic Trudel from Canada, Tiago Nasser joining us from Brazil, Hat Tran joining us from Vietnam, and Randy Ledal from Norway. Those are the constituencies that will be represented today. So Middle East and Northern Africa and the African countries participating of the coalition, North America, South and Central America, Asia, and Oceania, and Europe. So let's start with Jean-Charles. Please, Jean-Charles, are you there? Can you hear us?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So I will help you with the slides. Hello.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So my name is Jean-Charles. I'm in the market environment, for those who do not know me, for the last 5 years before I have another career. And I joined, my organization joined the first day of the first 2023, the WFMC, and I was elected. Thank you to all, to the board. And this gives me the opportunity today to talk to you on behalf of the MENA region and a bit on African, also some countries of Africa if needed. Voilà. So basically, we were talking. I have to take I will take 2 minutes about the situation in Lebanon because a lot of people are asking me individually. We are safe, at least the part we are in today. However, just to mention how we are living, yesterday market was ended a bit early because we just received 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers away. We saw a missile hitting the capital. We were in the suburb. So suddenly the customer just disappeared. Okay, it's like a, gunshot and flock of birds leaving the space. But yet we continue to do it, to work it, and because we have a community of vendors that needs to simply live from their work. So to summarize and not to be long on that, we are okay. We are continuing. By the way, we opened our 5th market last week, and we will continue to operate our markets every Tuesday, Saturday, or Sundays. Thank you for that. So coming back to thank you, Florian. So what we have as a gap today is there is a gap between what we want to deliver and how we are still seen. Okay, we want to deliver, income, access to fresh local economy activity. We want to be a vibrant community, having this cohesion that we can create between vendors, stakeholders, and customers. Yet we are just seen as, well, at least in Lebanon and in the global region that I am following, as well. These guys are just will disappear. They are coming once a week. So they just NGOs. So and at the end they think we are non-strategic. So this is for us a very important problem. It has been mentioned in both Tunisia, in Lebanon, of course, in Turkey. Well, government doesn't see us as essential. So we have a high impact in reality. And for example, for your information, we began for the last two weeks now, we are collecting the turnover vendor by vendor. It's mandatory in our market now, just to evaluate how much we weigh in the economy. And with these figures, in some months, we will be able to go to the ministries, government authorities, municipalities, and say, look, what we can do. And we want your help, your attention, and better laws. Thank you, Anna. So for us and all the countries that we have, we worked on this February studios and preparation for that summary, is that all the participants agreed in the importance of seeking support from the World Farmers Market Coalition to help us design policy frameworks that can be adapted locally, of course, and to assist authorities in establishing national standards for farmers market. If I have to give an example, I just sent a mail to the Ministry of Agriculture saying that since we do not have even the definition of a farmer's market in Lebanon, I would like to propose one and sign an MOU with you taking in consideration the one that we have, simply the one that we have in WFMC, and I would like you to apply it. So I got a positive response for a meeting. So it's a big, for us, you cannot imagine. For us, it's a very, very interesting step for us, and we are happy about that. So more about that in the coming months. So despite the war, obviously ministries are working. So in terms of this is the legal recognition. It comes from first who we are, because we cannot be recognized if they don't know who we are. So we want them to to sign the inked definition that we want to have, and then begin to build over and over all the different policy. One of them is to put the farmers market as the center of any food distribution in a country or in a city or in a remote village. Then we have in the different countries, the municipalities are very important, though in our, I would say, countries to be developed, municipalities and local agents, and then they don't have a clear view on that. And we would like to, and my aim is to help municipalities as the one that we have in Tripoli, in Lebanon, in 2 days. We are meeting with the municipality, president of municipality, simply because he decided to kick us out after 1 year of operation, plus an opening of by the Ministry of Agriculture and the ambassador of Italy and the local FAO and all NGOs. 1 year after, he's thinking to kick us out, simply because he wants to take the place we are taking from him, to rent it as a shisha bar. So imagine how big is his attention to that. So thanks to our colleague in Tripoli, Nuhad, we got a meeting. Again, meeting doesn't mean decision, but at least they will hear about that. And then coming back to these. Whenever you want to develop markets, you have to have something in hand. So clear governance, clear rules for the market, inside the market, outside the market. I'm coming from a world where everything was on a paper, on a contract, and clear to everyone, so nobody can evade this. So if we have today to go on an important step, is to clearly write, mention, go with whatever we have, discuss with the local authorities, and get their attention as much as possible. It is very important. Thank you, Anna. So this is where we are today, as a very simple how we can, I write it like this: what I'm living today as a farmers market manager or farmers market coalition. By the way, coalition in the name of my country is very vague, because not vague, it's not applicable, because when I went to other organizations, they just say to me, who you are. You're the last one to come. We are here for a long time. Who you are. And they were not interested. So sorry, because in joining us, because I think a lot of ego, but also a lot of misunderstanding on what a farmers market is. So in Lebanon, we have trying to use with both public and private place. We know that we are just at the beginning of the demand, and the local demand is just growing. And the figures that I will disclose in September, after 4-5 months of operating 5 markets, will show it. And I've been asked today, how come you know that it works? I said some of our vendors are here since 2017, so it is something that works. And if they are here, it means they are coming and they are making more money than yesterday. So what is missing is, for us, I think a legal framework, not about the entity, but the relation with the authorities, and it is a very important thing. We have to convince them that they have to integrate our concept into their layout of the city, thinking of reshaping the cities, but it is very important for that. And coming back to the coalition word, I hope one day we can all together sit with all the market operators and say globally, I would say lobbying and saying this is how we want to do. Voilà. So it's not, as I wrote at the end, this is not a Lebanon issue. It's a global policy gap. So all the countries we went through in the MENA region, in Turkey. I used to have also Congo in my group. Same thing. A lot of details that are important details, but that are just slowing the growth. Okay, and if my contribution to that, if we can think about contracts, written things that can be shared, not reinvent everything the same thing, and go to the authorities, it will be okay. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Jean-Charles. And we wanted to allow this moment or to have a longer moment, let's say, to hear from Jean-Charles because of what he was sharing with us. As you could hear, there's a particular situation going on there in that side of the world, but it's actually happening for all of us. It's concerning us all. And what he just shared, as he says, it's coming from a region that is requiring all this recognition, that is showing us to how strategic the small scale trading and production becomes, especially in context of conflict and disruption, and for which we need to plan, and in which we need to place this work of advocacy and dialogues across sectors and scales. And it's not just about what are we talking about here, just one separate market or a small group of markets. It's about major issues, global issues, no? And I think this is a very good example for that. So, well, now we're continuing.
Yeah, just
with other, yes.
Anna, I take back what Richard says. It's small actions. We have to act. It's small actions. Actions will be seen. Talks will be forgotten. So we are in this thing. Small actions, regardless of how big it affects. Small actions plus small action. At the end, the people will be convinced. Thank you very much to all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean-Charles. So now let's continue with Yannick. We will take now shorter interventions, but at the end we will try to complete the ideas. Sorry, Yannick, for that.
No problem.
Sorry, here
First
today.
of all, yeah, okay, right. Okay, so thanks, Jean-Charles, again for your voices. It's really interesting to know how it's going on there, and it's a real privilege to have you in this conversation and sharing many ideas with you. First of all, desidero ringraziare l'intero team in Italia per questa opportunità. It's really important to thank the team in Italia. So in our collab in North America, we discuss many things and many examples was brought up. I just want to underline few things, and maybe we can exchange later on after all the presentation about the point that we'll be adding to the conversation. But first of all, what we recognize is that creating alliance outside and inside farmers market network is really important to bring advocacy on farmers market. There is a lot of farmers market are business accelerator and business incubators, and depending on which type of biofood produce there is, sometimes there is laws that are prohibit some produce to be sold in farmers market, such as alcohol or other types. So within farmers market, at a certain level of governance, there is an opportunity on sub-regional, regional, or national level to create network. In Quebec, we have our organization, which unify more than 160 farmers market around. But we do have to work on different level, sub-regional and regional, especially to make sure that we are facing the same level of governance and with their own purpose. So for an example, in Quebec, but I think in North America, we do have the municipal level, then the sub-regional level, then the regional level, then the provincial level, and then the federal level, with all those different competences, and they want to play within the competences of one another. So when you're tackling some opportunities or some obstacles that you're facing, you definitely need to unify in a network of farmers market and other alliance outside the farmers market network to make sure that you're facing the good level of governance, and first of all, and the good laws or the good competences related to it. So when you're facing those obstacles, sometimes you need to find within the law where there are contradictions. Laws are written from many, many years ago, and sometimes the the way society evolve make underline the contradiction in the laws, but obviously the obstacle that is within. So finding and underlining those contradiction can help you to create something better at the end of the day. So when we are thinking about taking action and creating tools and guidelines to mitigating the issue you're facing, it is. So sometimes you just present what is a contradiction, what is a burden for your activities. But if you're, I will say, only on a passive mode, you won't be able to make those laws or those circumstances changes. So you need to bring the problem sometimes, but also a solution. You can work sometime with the governments, but we definitely need to bring also a solution that will make it easy. So it's easy to say for me for sure, but at the end of the day, when you're collecting alliances, facing the same problems, creating, and that's the most important part, I would say, a unified voice toward this kind of issue obstacles, you can tackle something and then create tools or guidelines that will be helping in the near future. So uh, I'm I'm convinced that farmers market do need a voice, better voices. The coalition bring those kind of voices, but when we are sitting with one another and discussing about the same problematic that we face in farmers market, we do time to recognize how in certain area this kind of action brought a better environment for the growth of businesses within farmers market, but also the expansion of the farmers market network within. So I will be brief. So that's the part of the conversation I want to brought with the North American collab. So yeah, Ana Maria, I'm passing
Thanks,
the
Veronique.
torch.
Yes, thank you very much. Also from this collab, I remember apart from this like important reflection about the alliances, and you see throughout North America that there are these associations of markets in Quebec, in Montreal, also in North America, the Farmers Markets Coalition. You need that to navigate through all these levels of dialogue, no, or an advocacy at the end. And it was also interesting to see this contrast between public and private, no, interests. So you have public and private practices, spaces. Like the logic, it becomes clear when you talk about what the markets do, where do they operate, and I think that's an interesting reflection also for the other constituencies. But here in particular, it became quite tangible, no, in the way you treat alcohol vending, for instance, no, or how you defend the use of your public space. Thanks for that. We'll continue now with Tiago, Board Representative for South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Hello, Tiago. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everybody. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Saludo especial a nuestros amigos de América Latina, Centro. Thank you, Ana Maria, for the coordination. Thank you for our team in Rome. It's nice to see everybody. So my name is Thiago Nasser. I work for an organization called Junta Local based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We've been running farmers markets since 2014, and I'm also WorldFMC representative for South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So we had our collab a couple weeks ago, and I would just like to underline the main takeaways. trying to bring a little bit of the flavors of Central South America in this regard. So of course there are many different kinds of markets, each kind different sizes of countries and levels of uh, uh, coordination among markets in each country. But something that was a thorough line for all the farmers markets in the region is that even though recognition is on the rise, most of our markets still operate what we call the fringes of basically municipal or federal governance because there are no specific policies for farmers markets. So sometimes these are negotiations with public authorities or different municipalities. So most of the arrangements for markets in South and Central America are very dependent on specific political conjunctures or the relationships that are fostered between organizers and public authorities. And this is especially crucial uh, because all of the markets have the same challenge in terms of the occupation of public spaces and following food safety and handling guidelines. So on one hand, most of the market managers have become very adept at advocacy, but it's usually in terms of navigating very shifting political situations or even uh, situations of political turmoil. Some countries do have uh, more structured policy frameworks. So, for example, Colombia has a federal law that supports farmers markets, but however, it doesn't give too much autonomy for self-managed markets. Buenos Aires has an interesting policy that facilitates the occupation of public spaces. Um, so so there are a few cases in our region that can serve as an example as we go from sort of micro lobbying just and advocacy just to be able to run our markets and shifting towards lobbying and doing advocacy for actual policy changes, which is, I think, the main what the World FMC has identified and that we're trying to leverage through these experiences. We need more, we need to build upon the recognition farmers markets are having and also clearer definitions of what a farmers market is, which is also a challenge because many countries and municipalities have policies for feiras in Brazil, feiras livres, which are basically street markets without a definition, or in some countries for organic markets or agroecologic markets. So it's important, I think, as Janik said, to identify different connections and build collectivities in order to both to bolster our voices, but it's also being able to propose what a farmer's market is still a challenge. So basically, looking forward, what what we have decided that our next steps will be to identify and share these positive cases of municipalities that have processes for legal permits and such that so that when we want to act locally, we can actually show other positive examples. And another step forward is to create the powerful tools to communicate the importance of farmer markets geared at makers and city officials. So basically, bringing, policymakers like to see numbers, like to see our impact, and like to see that we're not just makeshift people wanting to sell food. We are local, but we are also a global force. So this is what we're trying to do this is hopefully what we'll be able to build upon looking forward. So thank you.
Gracias, Thiago. Thank you very much. And it's true, it was interesting in this collab, the interest at the end of sharing experiences. Particularly, I think we're all interested, and usually when we get together and we discuss, we're asking about like how you did for data collection, some practices. But in this one in particular, there was this interest about learning others' laws or regulations, or even like the struggles or how you are representing these needs. And I think it's because of this sort of common scenario of always trying to find the space, not to work through the gaps and the weaknesses, because we also have to recognize that in the region there are these problems of instability or lack of representation, no? So at the end, you're just learning how to deal with that, and through those spaces, continue operating. And also one thing interesting here was how agriculture sort of like help to navigate those spaces, no? Like you could take that as a tool. Sometimes it's a limitation, like the lack of support there, but also sometimes it's a way of navigating the other rules that are not supporting you. So it was something I remember from this collab. So let's continue and take more time from the others. How are you there?
Yeah.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hello. Me too.
Thanks for
Nice to see
connecting so
everyone.
late there. Thanks.
Good evening from Vietnam. My name is Ha Chen. I'm working for the Vietnam office of Healthbridge Foundation of Canada, and I'm representative of the East Asia and Oceania region. And I'm very pleased to briefly share a few insights from our collab. Our collab combined the two regions, the Asia constituency and the East Asia and Oceania constituency. But for some reason, we missed the Oceania college in our discussion, maybe because of the time arrangement. So our discussion include representative from Bangladesh, Thailand, Taiwan, and Vietnam. And we had a very interesting discussion. And what struck me during the discussion is that members in the region are using various strategies supporting farmers markets. I'm sorry that I'm in a trip to the center of Vietnam and very busy with the workshop and training and meetings here, so I didn't have time to prepare slide. But what I report back is based on my notes. Forgive me. Okay, so the first insight is about finding the right entry point for advocacy. Sometimes it is not effective to advocate for farmers market directly, but instead it can be more powerful to connect them to another issue that the policymaker really care about. For example, in Dhaka, Naima from the Work for Better Bangladesh shared that their advocacy started with the issue of safe food, because safe food is a big concern for the public and for the government in Bangladesh. So by positioning farmers markets as a place where consumers can access safer and fresh food, trustworthy food, it became easier to build support to farmers market. The message was not just support farmers market, but it was that the farmers markets are part of the solution to safe and healthy food. So it would be more effective. And the second insight is the importance of starting with small pilots and building evidence. Walapa shared a really interesting story from Thailand about green market movement. The movement began in 2006 as a very small market initiative, but because the model worked well, it gradually expanded to other provinces. Eventually, the Ministry of Public Health adopted the idea and integrated green markets into public procurement. So today, there are, according to WorldFMC, there are hundreds of markets organized in the hospital across Thailand. What I found interesting from this example is that the process follows 3 stages. First, pilots, and then policy recognition, and finally, institutionalization. This example shows that policy change often take time, and a small successful market or a small successful pilot can influence national policy. And the third insight from our discussion is that sometimes the policy environment actually moving in the opposite direction. For example, in Vietnam, Big from Slow Food Committee in Hanoi share that recent policies such as tighter tax regulation or efforts to remove sidewalking vending and informal street markets are making life more difficult for informal vendors, small traders, and farmers markets, farmers vendors. So in some context, our advocacy is not about expanding farmers markets, but about protecting the existing food system and making sure that small vendors and farmers are not pushed out by urban modernization policies. Finally, in our discussion, we also heard an interesting example from Taiwan. Vivian from Water Garden Farmers Market in Taipei shared a model where their farmers market are organized at metro stations. And these markets are very, very well organized and clean, and they are located in places where there are many people pass every day. So this successful pilot have changed people perception. So because sometimes in Asia, farmers markets are seen wet, messy, or old-fashioned. But when they are located in modern urban spaces like a metro station, they become part of the everyday city modern life. So here are some key lessons from our discussion that I try to summarize. First, we frame the farmers market around hot issues such as public health or food safety or sustainability can help our advocacy work better. Or secondly, if we start with a practical pilot model, the successful example can be very powerful advocacy tool. And thirdly, we had to pay attention to the policy context. So in some places, the goal is not just to scale up farmers market, but to protect informal food systems that are already under pressure. So in summary, the farmers markets are not just about selling food, and they are connected to public health, local livelihood, urban planning, and community life. So when we connect them to this broader issue, so our advocacy becomes much stronger. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ha. Actually, that was a very interesting conversation. Richard can remember. Now we had the time also. Well, it was challenging, we have to say, because I'm in Lima, Richard is in New York, and we had to deal through these 12 to 14 hours difference. And that's also why Sarah couldn't join us that day. But at the end, Sarah, please, if you want to add some ideas, you're very welcome. And it was interesting here to listen how really the sociocultural values of food could be translated into how farmers markets could, and the ideas, the imaginary around food, local markets could be changed. No? And in this case, it was very strong, this reconceptualization through the notions of the values that were trying to be protected through public health. And I think something interesting was also like looking at about these changes around the concept on the modern city, no? Like in this example, in the metro stations, no? And when they could manage to place these new concepts of the market being like a safe, healthy food location, or it could be well translated into a modern city vision too. The number of markets could just spread sort of like easily, you know, like in a sort of short period of time. You could see like in these examples that I was sharing, there were like the multiplication of farmers markets, no, in those regions or in those cities. So thanks for reminding us those possibilities. Huh? And let's listen to Randy. We are going in chronological order, actually. That's how these collabs happened. That's how we chose this order too. Randy, please join us.
Yeah, hello, nice to see
Hello.
you. It's in this studios, I'm always struck by how many similarities we can see all over the world. No matter if we are talking about South America or Asia or Europe or North America or Africa. It's so many of the same things happening. And in European collabs, we experience that it's very important for us, like Ka said, that to be part of the solution. But the European debate about agriculture has not been seeing, when it comes to climate and when it comes to all other discussions, agriculture is seldom seen as a solution. So we have to show that we can be an alternative, and that to the industrial food big companies, and that the big power they have is can be challenged. But we have many of the same challenges that you have other places in the world. The privatizing of streets and squares in city centers, they make it difficult to arrange markets. It's difficult to get permits and licenses and also the costs. And this is true for United Kingdom and for Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and also for Krakow. And in Norway, we also see that they, on the local level, sometimes they decide to use a lot of money to upgrade the town squares, but then they end up being so expensive to hire for people like us, so we are not able to do it anymore. And we also see all over Europe, I think, a lack of young farmers in general. In Norway, we have been working a long time, and we see that the political context is very different now than it was 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, we were just seen as informal and very, very small and very, very much an NGO, but we have been trying to build rules, and we have trying to build the picture of ourselves when it taking step by step when it comes to collecting the turnover and documentation of what we are doing. It's so now it's easier to get the politicians to listen to us, and it's easier to make them see us as part of the solution. But we're not. We have a long way still to go. And we discussed in the European Collab that it's very important to find good ways to interact with politicians, because even though one politician maybe will disappear the next year, that person will still know something more about what you're doing. And that person will take that knowledge with him or her also to the next place where the politician will be working. So step by step, we have to build the recognition, and that's why it's important for us to invite them to the markets, and it's important to invite them to the farms, so they see all the good work we do. We see that even though many of the European countries are in the European Union, still there is different regulations, and some of the regulations may be the same, but in practicality, it's not the same. So we see that it's very important to do this collection of cases, to have good examples from other countries to show, so we can say that, but this regulation in this country, they do it like this, and that fits also with your country. So then we can give them the solution, like Jean-Nic said, and we can help them to see the picture and to help them to understand that it's not a strange idea. It's actually very well functioning in other places as well. So that was the very chaotic summary of the takeaways in Europe.
Thank you, Randy. No, and actually, it's true. So we heard from different countries there, and even if it's a region where we could recognize the regional agreements and sort of like consensus or more consensus, built over the years, even though we found like all these specificities and very local complexities, like in the example of Rotterdam, and you, Randy, posing the challenges in Norway. So I think it shows us also a human face of markets, and how particular it can become, like the struggles in each neighborhood, city, and how important it is to keep building these coalitions, locally, regionally, at country scale, and then globally, reinforcing, and giving us a strength when we are like sort of weak in that sense too. So please, let's try to hear some other voices. I hope that you could follow us in all these reflections, in these travels around the world. If you have any reactions, we would love to hear from those also joining us today. And also, guys, if you felt that you missed something because we were struggling with time, please raise your hands too and share anything that was left aside. So how did you feel it? Now that you are listening each other, did you find these connections? So Nuhar is writing, absolutely so. Politicians and policymakers need to get their feet on the ground and see what farmers markets are doing for the farmers and producers and the community. We invited our mayor several times and he still hasn't visited. Probably that's also a common global situation. Nuhad is writing from Lebanon, so thanks Nuhad for connecting too. Yeah, actually for me, one of the main learnings and having the great chance and privilege actually to join be with you in these 5 sessions was like how evident it is that we need each other. We need these global friends and understandings too. We need to sometimes live or very localized spaces and problems. We need to see each other in the broader frame of how things happen in this world and how we are human, everywhere, and that is connecting us deep down. But from that recognition, from this global opportunity, we need to go back to our places and look at us, at ourselves, at our communities, and see what we are missing too. It's a great example to see the coalitions in North America. Like I love that. I love the coalition or the network that they have in Italy. And from here, I see farmers markets in the Andean countries, and I think that they could make so much more progress than what they have managed to do now, with all the weaknesses that Tiago was mentioning, or the gaps, being pirates many times, no, as he describes too. But what if we had a network? What if we knew each other more? I was recently, maybe another example, while someone else wants to raise their hands. But another example is that a few weeks ago, I was in Colombia. I was with Paola, who's here. And it was the first time that they sat in Bogota. So we invited some farmers markets in Bogota to meet in an informal session, in an informal dialogue, and see like what's going on, what were the challenges, and the municipality was also there. And it was the first time because someone from out of the city and the country visited and made the invitation. It was the first time that they were sitting together. They knew each other from other times, and Yura was also there. I see Yura is connected. Probably they had the conversations in other moments, but the fact of just sitting, and sharing the problems in the same moment, and and in that moment also finding possibilities like, hey, you can work with me. Why didn't you tell me before? That makes a big change. So we hope that through these spaces you also find those possibilities, not in your regions and across the globe with those with whom you share problems, but also possibilities. Melody, we hear you. Thanks for raising your hand. Hello. Hi, Melody. Or Gary. I don't know if we're having some audio problems. Would you like to try?
Hi,
Hi, Gary.
Because I'm from Food Think, China. We work very close with the Beijing Farmers Market. It's pretty late here, so I'm wearing pajamas, so I'm not gonna open my camera. I just have a
Fine.
question for Randy from Norway. I saw your PPT, the last point you saying that for your people, you're very care about the local food. So actually, this is policy just came out. I just wondering, when you say local food, do you mean by domestic or like local, the city or near around the city? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. And that definition is not everyone agree on the formal definition, because that one is quite wide, but it's a definition telling that yes, it's about the food with traditional history, and food with processed and local, and also ingredients from local. But the definition on local is so it's you will find in Norway that the I have a more narrow definition when I talk to the politicians, and I try to get them to recognize that. But at least the definition they use it's quite good, but it could have been better.
Okay. I just one more question though. So I think you have like a specific like a percentage or like for the domestic for the local food, right? Like a number. But do you for example, like in China, we buy lots of beef and soy from Brazil. Um, so we have a situation now in China is that the local beef, they like those farmers, they actually they sell a lot less beef, so they actually the economy got pretty bad now. But it becomes like a business or even like a more about political, what we say like a food safety, like in the broad way, you know, national way, food safety. So we have to buy lots of beef and soy from, you know, before it was America, now it's Brazil. So, but we also, the government also saying, oh, we buy lots of local food from farmers, but um, I think it's for some kind of food, but not like for beef or soy because they think that's not enough. So I was curious about in Norway's case, is it similar? Like you buy certain food from maybe other countries, but when you say to care about the local food, you mean the like a local planet, like a local food, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we should try to discuss this later better. But in Norway we have a very cold climate. So in calories, we say that we import 50% of what we eat. We do the milk and the meat by ourselves, and some fruit and some veggies, but there's a lot of things we have to import. So and today it's also people don't want to live off the fish and the potatoes and the cabbage and the onion and the carrots only because if we had should be self-sufficient we had to live on that and not much else. So but we have agricultural policy in Norway working very hard to protect, to make it possible to survive as a farmer. So it's been, but that has been a political, complicated discussion always. But today we see that it's much more support for this agricultural policy than it used to be some years ago. And one of the reasons is also because we have taken back what I call local food, the connection between the food and the farmer and the customer. So because of the work Farmers Market has done, but also many others, has helped other people to see that actually we have to take care of this food production because it's not sure that we can just import everything from all over the world because things can happen and they need the food themselves, so it's not sure they want to sell it to anyone else. So this recognition has helped also to stimulate the discussion about how local is local and how can we improve to make ourselves more self-sufficient. But takes time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Gary, for the question, and thank you, Randy, for that reflection. Let's take these final minutes. Don't leave because we will ask you also, please, to share, to open your cameras, those who can, to have a final memory of today. But let's hear from Richard. He will share with us a final reflection, and then we will leave you and hope to be connected after this. Richard.
Thank you, Ana Maria. And thank you for coalescing this really curious conversation, which I think does reflect something, Ana Maria, you said a few moments ago about how do we pull ourselves out from the everyday logistics that we are often bedraggled by. And I think the last conversation, looking at the Norwegian and Chinese context, I really appreciate this dialogue, because we do throw out lots of terminology, including the terminology of farmers market, which is why we at our General Assembly had felt it was time to have a paper on the terminology, the definitions, so that we know our terms. Well, one of the more provocative terms is local. What does it mean? I think if I were to ask you to put into the chats, what are the distances that you require or prevent farmers from entering your market, it varies greatly depending upon the context of where you are located. So we do applaud the ability, the sovereignty of each of you to define what you mean by local. We know that what you define by local may cross several political boundaries, including the municipality, who may only be interested in the distinct municipality and not the peri-urban areas around it. So I think that by you as farmers market associations, defining what you mean by local is what matters more than whether we agree on whether it's 100 kilometers, three hours away, whatever sort of terminology we use. What's important is that you have a definition, because in your context, your definition will help to create or will help to invigorate the systems thinking that we operate in an ecosystem. There is a food shed, and we are defining the food shed. We know that food shed may run counter to the county or the province, who is not interested in you crossing those boundaries. But this is an opportunity for us to define what we consider to be our food system, especially because of something Randy had remarked on. The period that we now live in is at a remarkable crossroads, and we are now so used to the food coming in from everywhere, a sort of global machinery that means that we can eat anything, anytime. And that runs very counter. It's very provocative and interesting because it runs counter to the idea of only eating potatoes and rutabaga and beets all winter. That we've finally climbed ourselves out of that burden of only eating what is local. I think the opportunity we have of knowing that we know the flavors from around the world, and we know what it means to eat out of season, and we're now learning what the costs of eating out of season are, what the externalities are, is that this is an opportunity for innovation for local farmers to diversify. And the place where they can diversify and respond is I think the learning academy of the farmers market itself, because risk is mitigated in that context. But this does come down to the spaces that we animate and that we govern are spaces that are not just practical and logistical, but you are defining what are the local priorities, what are the local flavors. And this is where our work is so much more political. It's so much more related to leadership and governance. And I think we certainly felt that in the examples that we tasted from around the world were a glimpse of how both practical and visionary we can be as actors in our local space. And when we come together, it is much more powerful. So with that, I recognize the import substitution, which was dominant in the post-World War II period. We then traded it for globalization, and it does feel like a new kind of localized import substitution is back on the menu, and we are the cooks in the kitchen.
Thank you very much, Richard. And I think we can close here and say goodbye, but see you soon, please. I have to say thank you to all of you for the moment. Yes, please don't leave. We will take a picture. Start opening, please, your cameras. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. It's been a pleasure to be in all these regional sessions and also in these global meetings. I've been very lucky to have the chance to be with you during these months. So I hope to see you around. Look forward to what's coming. Let's see what comes in the new period. And if you haven't opened your cameras yet, please do it because Julia will start taking pictures and it's nice to be there.
Also, we will do the picture in a bit, but before I wanted to share the greetings of Carmelo that is not here today because he's in Kenya for two main reasons. The first one is to get and raise some funds of our work, and the other one is I'm gonna give you a huge spoiler right now. So Carmelo is in Kenya because Kenya will be the next place, so the next location that will host our General Assembly. Please don't ask us yet all the information, so just take the location as a huge spoiler, and for now you just have to think about Nairobi and Kenya, but we just wanted to let you know this, and we will follow up with more information soon. And Carmelo, say hi again. Now, please open your camera. A big smile. Wait. Sorry, I just need to unpin all the speakers. Usually Manuel is more tech than me. Okay, so smile
There we
everyone. Last one, the other page. Okay, perfect. Everything's done.
Great.
Great presentations,
Guapos,
everyone.
guapos todos. Nice to see you. Bellos.
Thank you. Bye.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Nice to see
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.